The Philadelphia 76ers are fresh off the heels of a massive victory over the New York Knicks to cut the series to 2-1 and put the first victory in the books for this series. And ladies and gentlemen, we are back. This comes on the heels of a heroic Joel Embiid performance, one in which in the game overall he poured in 50 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 13 for 19 from the field, 5 of 7 from 3. All this on the injured knee and what was now revealed to be a Bell's palsy issue that he was dealing with. So following the game, following a matchup, once again, he went absolutely nuclear. A playoff career high for him, a historic performance, the most in Sixers history, tied a ton of records for a ton of other things there. We get this Woj bomb coming out here saying that ESPN sources, Sixers star Joel Embiid has been treated for a mild case of Bell's palsy for the past week. The condition began during the play-in victory over Miami, but he's wanted to keep it private to avoid distractions to his team. So on a quick Google search for what Bell's palsy is, this is known as an acute facial palsy of unknown cause. It's a condition in which the muscles of your face become weak or paralyzed. It usually affects only one side of your face, causing it to droop or suddenly become stiff. Most of the time, the symptoms are only temporary. Doctors don't know what causes it, but think it may result from some kind of trauma to the 7th cranial nerve, which controls your facial muscles. So there's been a ton of buzz, a ton of just correlation and speculation for what this possibly could be. We've all seen the weird stuff with the eye dating back to when he hurt his knee originally. There's a lot that's been going on, and frankly, it's been getting worse. I know I pointed out on Twitter, talking about him wearing sunglasses constantly. He's done a lot of his post-game interviews pretty much keeping his head down, which a lot of people have been critical of, saying how this is not the right body language, and it sounds like, he's keeping his head down, when in reality, he's just kind of preventing this from being seen on the full sphere. I do respect him wanting to keep it private. That's kind of Joel's nature, and a lot of times our frustrations with the lack of injury reports, I have heard from the Sixers circles that this does more come from the Joel Embiid side of things, that he is pretty private with the injury stuff and doesn't want the perception to be as public. I think he's pretty sensitive to being labeled this injury-prone player the way that he has been throughout the years, and I think this is another example of that. But this is just all more the reason why he is a warrior, man. That with one leg, with half an eye, this dude is still playing like the best basketball player on the planet. And to get in the box score in its totality today, the Sixers win 125-114. As I mentioned, Embiid with a 50 piece, along with those 8 rebounds and 4 assists. We also got 25 points, 7 assists, and 4 boards from Tyrese Maxey. Shot 3 of 6 from 3, or 3 of 8 from 3 there. And a guy I want to highlight especially, Cameron Payne off the bench, 11 points, 3 assists, a huge boost of energy that he provided mid-game when he came in instead of Buddy Hield, which was absolutely the right call. And also want to highlight Kelly Oubre with nice 15-point and 7 rebound performance. Some key guys stepping up. The campaign thing I think is especially notable. We've talked plenty about the struggles of Buddy Hield, that this is a guy that just has not been the best version of himself since coming to the Sixers, that this dude who throughout his career has been a historically great shooter just seems way too unwilling. And the final straw today was he did have an open look from 3. He bricked it. And then shortly after had a layup attempt, which he absolutely smoked, could not finish. And thankfully, Nick Nurse did pull the plug. And a guy like Campaign, you could see that he was itching to get after it. That he clearly changed the flow of the game with his energy. And I haven't been the biggest Campaign guy, that I was pretty frustrated by the Pat Bev trade when it happened. And my argument was always there that I'm not debating that in a shorthanded setting, Campaign can get you more buckets than Patrick Beverley. But I do think in the context of what their role would be in a quick 12-minute burst throughout a game, I do think Pat Bev would bring more. But Campaign is kind of changing my mind. And he is a flawed basketball player, that he's among the worst defenders in the entire league. I will go out and say that. But you know what he does have is straight up balls. That the dude wants the big moment. He does climb. He's a dude that scored 29 points in the biggest stage in the playoffs before. And frankly, he should be in the rotation moving forward. But I do want to make sure the story of today is still Joel Embiid. That I do want to talk more about the context of how he continues to overcome some ridiculous obstacles. That to start with, the knee injury that he's constantly battling through. We've had many people step out and say publicly how they should shut him down for the season. How it is not even worth bringing him back this year. And Joel said, screw that. I'm playing. You're forcing me not to get on the court. And then he came back and clearly re-injured that knee right away. And he still is not shut down. Now, from a physical standpoint, I'll say in Game 3 tonight, I think that was the best I've seen him move in really weeks. That there looked like there was a purpose there. Some of the ways that he was able to spin off guys in the post and the way that he was just determined to get downhill, that's stuff that we haven't fully seen. And, of course, still dominant from the perimeter. Those 5 3-pointers are a big deal. He's now the only player in Sixers history to score 30 points and hit 5 3-pointers besides Allen Iverson, a pretty cool name to join there. And again, we now have this Bell's palsy thrown into the mix for what he's dealing with. Now, I do want to speak about why I think Joel Embiid is different this year. For starters, we've seen his game come to new lengths, that he's grown as a playmaker. We've seen his decision-making, his defensive impact, and still taking his scoring to new levels this year, that he was on pace to be the second player since Wilt Chamberlain, or the first player since Wilt Chamberlain, to average more points than minutes on the season. Just some ridiculous stuff that he was setting and on pace to set before the injury, and unfortunately, a great deal of this historical elite season will get lost in the context because of the injury. But beyond that, it feels like something has shifted in a mentality from him. And there was a quote that stood out to me a ton from Joel Embiid immediately after they went down 0-2. And he had this quote sitting here in the locker room saying, quote, "We should be 2-0. We're good. We're going to win this series." Now, we've seen a lot of different versions of Joel Embiid from the maturity standpoint. That we don't forget the guy that first came here fresh out of Kansas, just a couple years removed from moving to the country of America from Cameroon, where he was up getting on the stage, dancing shirtless with Meek Mill when he was supposed to be out on the injury report. We know him shooting his shot at Rihanna and Kim Kardashian on Twitter before he ever even stepped foot on an NBA court. That version of Joel Embiid arrived in Philadelphia. But the version of him today, it's just different, that he has flipped a switch from a maturity standpoint. And when I not just read this quote, but watched him say it, this was not pouty, whiny Joel. This was not throw a teammate under the bus Joel. This was a guy that was frustrated and he was confident. And he said it with like a kind of just conviction that made me believe that it was I don't care what happens. I don't care if I have one functioning knee. I don't care if you have to carry me off that floor. I don't care if I have no teammates stepping up. I'm finding a way to win this game because I'm the best player in the world. I'm going to prove it. And that's exactly what he is. That when he has it going, when he is playing the best version of his basketball, there is not another player. There's not another basketball player in the world that can touch his peak. There's simply not another guy that can reach the greatness of Joel Embiid. That includes Nikola Jokic, that includes LeBron James, Giannis, whoever you want to throw in that conversation. When Embiid is playing his best, nobody else can reach that. Now, he absolutely has his lows as well, and that's a bit of the give and take of him as a player, is he is more volatile than a lot of these guys. Like a baseline bad game for Nikola Jokic is certainly higher than a baseline bad game for Joel Embiid. But it is that peak and that top-end talent that he can reach that you absolutely live with from the Sixers' perspective. And it was mentioned that this issue with the Bell's palsy originated around the play-in tournament. Joel was asked specifically about this after the game, and he had this quote here saying, quote, "That's why in the Miami game, I just was not feeling it. I'm sure if you Google the symptoms, you know what it is. It's pretty annoying. It's been tough, but I'm not a quitter. I just got to keep pushing." Now, when you think back to that Miami game, obviously it was not Joel Embiid's best game, that he struggled through the better part of 3/4 of that. But when it got to crunch time, that's when we saw this superstar step to center stage. That we saw it was Joel Embiid being the guy who took over down the stretch, scoring 11 points in that fourth quarter. The Sixers simply do not win the game without Joel Embiid. He was the best player on the floor, and he just showed it. That, to me, was a different Joel Embiid. That seeing him take those steps, seeing him say, "We're living and dying with me being the guy," that meant something. And that mentality has carried out from here. Now, the Sixers are still down 2-1 in the series. They still have a ways to go. As I've mentioned from the very beginning, I'm very clearly Sixers in 6, and Joel Embiid is just giving more reason why that is the case. That I do truly believe this guy has turned a new page this season from a maturity standpoint, from a mentality standpoint, and from a capability to play basketball standpoint. That this dude is very much the elite talent well beyond ever what we could hope to be. He embodies Philadelphia's spirit in a way that he does not get enough credit for, that he's leaving every ounce of effort, of passion, of his just pure body on the floor right now, and you have to tip your cap for that. I think the ride's just getting started. I think it's Sixers in 6. I think they're going deep this year, and I want you guys along for the ride. So rock with me till then. Make sure you're smashing that subscribe button right here on Sixers Digest. Drop me a like to let me know you're listening, and any comments that you have on the situation overall. Hopefully Joel Embiid continues on the mend, does get better. I'm sure I'll dive deeper into the Bell's palsy kind of side of things as we get more details. It is one of those things, just kind of the brief research here, that there isn't a ton out on, that it's more or less like you basically just let it recover and hope it gets better, and there are circumstances in which that does not happen. I hope that's not the case, and from the human being standpoint here, like that's one of those things where it has to be pretty crushing mentally. Like you look at yourself in the mirror and you can't move half your face. That sucks. Like, I don't know if I'm leaving the house if that is the case, and we're watching Joel Embiid give 50 points to an Eastern Conference opponent. But regardless, that's just more the reason to respect him and more the reason how impressive this level of play is. So appreciate you guys for tuning in once again. Talk with you next time. I'll have a new video dropping tomorrow for sure. So make sure you're staying posted for that, and talk next time. Peace.